The Velkari Dominion had conquered 47 species across 3 galactic arms. Their strategy was refined, clinical, and merciless. First came the orbital bombardment, reducing major cities to ash. Then the psychological warfare, broadcasts showing the futility of resistance. Finally, the ground forces descended to mop up survivors and establish order. When they reached Earth, they followed the same protocol. Commander Zekthor watched from his flagship as Shanghai, New York, and Mumbai burned. The humans fought back, with primitive kinetic weapons and nuclear warheads, but it made little difference. Within 6 standard cycles, Earth's military infrastructure lay in ruins. The Velkari had won, as they always did. "Dispatch the collection teams," Zekthor ordered. "Begin standard processing." What the Velkari didn't understand was that humanity had never fought a war of extinction before. Every conflict in human history had an implicit assumption: there would be an after. Treaties would be signed, borders would be redrawn, life would continue. The Velkari had removed that assumption. The collection teams descended on refugee camps across 4 continents. They encountered little resistance, mostly exhausted civilians too broken to fight. Reports streamed back to the flagship: processing nominal, casualties minimal, subjugation proceeding ahead of schedule. Then the reports stopped coming. Collection Team 7 Alpha was the first to go dark. Their last transmission was garbled, filled with static and what sounded like screaming. Not human screaming, but Velkari. Team 9 Beta disappeared an hour later. Then, 12 Gamma. Zekthor reviewed the final footage from Team 9 Beta's body cameras. The team had been securing a tunnel system beneath the ruins of London when the lights cut out. In the darkness, something moved. The thermal imaging showed human heat signatures, but they were behaving wrong. Too fast, too coordinated, appearing and disappearing like ghosts. One by one, the soldiers fell. The last camera caught a glimpse of a human face painted with ash and blood, eyes reflecting the infrared like an animal's. Then static. "Send in the Heavy Assault Division," Zekthor commanded. "These are just insurgents. We've dealt with worse." But they hadn't. The Heavy Assault Division entered the ruins of Tokyo with mechanized armor and plasma artillery. They found the city empty, silent except for the wind howling through broken skyscrapers. Then the attacks began, not frontal assaults, but ambushes from the shadows. Humans emerged from sewers, subway tunnels, and building foundations. They struck with salvaged weapons, improvised explosives, and something far more terrifying: absolute conviction. The division called for extraction within 2 hours. Across Earth, the pattern repeated. The Velkari had reduced humanity to a pre-industrial state, destroyed their governments and infrastructure. They had intended to break human spirit, to make them docile. Instead, they had stripped away 10,000 years of civilization and revealed what lay beneath. Zekthor began receiving reports that defied logic. Humans were operating without supply lines, without command structure, without hope of victory. They weren't fighting to win. They were fighting because fighting was all that remained. Velkari, xenopsychologists called it primal regression, a reversion to prehistoric survival instincts. They were wrong. Humanity hadn't regressed. They had focused. Every human alive had inherited the genes of survivors. Beings who had clawed their way to the top of Earth's food chain not through strength or speed, but through persistence, adaptability, and the willingness to do whatever survival demanded. For millennia, civilization had channeled those instincts into law, morality, and restraint. The Velkari had destroyed that civilization. Now, in the ruins, humanity remembered what it had forgotten. They were persistence predators, evolved to chase prey across endless savannas until it collapsed from exhaustion. They were the species that had hunted megafauna to extinction with nothing but sharpened sticks and patience. They were the descendants of survivors who had endured ice ages, plagues, and countless wars against each other. And now they had a common enemy. The Velkari called for reinforcements. 3 more battle groups entered Earth's orbit, bringing the occupation force to over 40,000 soldiers. It should have been more than enough to pacify one primitive world. Within a month, half were dead. Humans fought from the sewers and subways, from collapsed buildings and forgotten bunkers. They used Velkari weapons scavenged from the dead. They learned, adapted, and evolved their tactics with terrifying speed. Velkari patrols ventured out, in ever larger groups and returned in ever smaller numbers. But the true horror, Zekthor realized, wasn't the fighting, it was the silence. Velkari soldiers began reporting psychological effects. They felt watched, constantly. In the ruins, they heard sounds, footsteps, whispers, movement, but found nothing. Sentries disappeared from their posts. Supply convoys never reached their destinations. The humans were becoming something beyond guerrilla fighters. They were becoming monsters. Zekthor accessed the Dominion's historical database, searching for precedent. He found references to a human myth, something called the Boogeyman, a creature that lived in darkness that came for those who ventured where they shouldn't. He found stories of human warriors from ancient times, berserkers who fought without fear of death. He found tales of creatures called werewolves and vampires, humans transformed into predatory nightmares. He finally understood. These weren't separate myths. They were warnings. Humanity had always known what lurked inside them. They had created civilization to contain it, channeled it through laws and customs and social contracts. They had built a cage around their darkest nature and convinced themselves the cage was all they were. The Velkari had broken that cage. 6 months after the invasion, Zekthor stood before the Dominion Council via holographic transmission. His fleet was in orbit, but he no longer controlled the planet below. Earth cannot be pacified, he reported. Recommend immediate withdrawal and planetary quarantine. Unacceptable, the Council replied. The Velkari do not retreat. Send all remaining forces planetside. End this. Zekthor closed his eyes. With respect, Council, you don't understand. We didn't invade their world. We released something that should have stayed buried. Every soldier we send down becomes one more thing for them to hunt. They're not fighting us anymore, they're feeding on us. The transmission ended. Orders came through. Total planetary assault at dawn. Zekthor looked at Earth turning slowly below, its surface scarred and burning, and wondered what 40,000 years of evolution as an apex predator really meant. The Velkari had conquered 47 species, but none of them had been predators, not like humanity. As his ships prepared for the final assault, Zekthor understood the truth that would soon spread across the galaxy. You can defeat humans. You can even break their civilization, but you cannot break what they evolved from. And if you push them far enough, if you strip away everything they've built, you won't find weakness underneath. You'll find the reason Earth had no natural predators left. You'll find what humanity had locked away for 10,000 years. You'll find the monster they tried so hard to forget they were.